Hey everyone, Ryan here at etrailer. Today on our 2023 Ford Escape, we're going to be showing you how to install the Blue Ox base plate kit with removable arms. Before we get into that though, let's take a minute, we'll check this out and make sure it's going to work for you. Before we jump right in, I figured I'd touch base on probably the most asked question in regards to setting up a flat toe, and that's what parts am I going to need? There's a total of 5 main components. You'll have your base plate, your tow bar, your safety cables, your tow bar or diode wiring, as well as your supplemental braking system. And then on the Escape, I definitely always like to recommend using a towed vehicle battery charge line kit. With these hybrids, you know, the electronics are very sensitive, things of that nature, and by using a charge line kit, what that's going to do is ensure that your battery stays topped off whenever you're flat towing your Escape down the road. With that out of the way though, let's talk about the base plate. So, you know, this is how your setup can look whenever you're getting ready to flat tow behind your motorhome. And I like it. I think it is one of the better looking base plates available. Everything's easy to see and get to. You know, you can take a quick look back here, make sure everything is sorted the way that you want it to. And when it comes to picking out a base plate for these Escapes, there's something that you really need to pay attention to, and that's the fitment, right? Because there's some that are hybrids, some are plug-in hybrids, so on and so forth. And with this particular base plate, it's going to fit the vehicles that are just the regular hybrids. It's not going to fit the ones that are the plug-in model. So if you do happen to have a plug-in style hybrid, there's other base plates available that are fit for that. But with that said, with the Blue Ox one, as long as you have the regular hybrid, it'll work kind of across the board as far as the different submodels, whether you have, you know, the base model, the loaded one, or even the ST line model like we have here today. This is how the front of your Escape can look whenever you're not hooked up to your motorhome. And I think that's going to be important, right? Because you're not always going to be flat towing your vehicle. With this one, I think it's about as good as it can get, aesthetically speaking. The arms are a little bit closer in, and so you don't have to cut large openings way off to the side like some of the other base plates require. So very minor trimming with this one. And I like the finish of it. It has more of a matte black finish, which almost matches the plastic on our grill. Almost spot on, and so it's going to do a good job of kind of blending in and not being too noticeable. Whenever you are ready to hook up to your coach, all you're going to have to do is pull out the little plugs that go in the base plate, and I think that's a nice touch actually too. It kind of cleans up the look and keeps, you know, debris and stuff from getting in there when you're not flat towing. You pull that out, and then you'll have these removable arms here. Take those, rotate them about a quarter turn until they lock into place. They'll be set up the exact same way over here for this one. As far as getting the tow bar hooked up to it, you'll just line up the ends here. Put your pin and your clip through. That's really all that's involved there. And as far as the safety chain openings, are going to come out a little ways to make it easy to allow you to hook up your safety cables to. And the openings are going to be large enough to accept just about any style of end that you might have. And the base plate is going to be compatible with Blue Ox tow bars like the Ascent model that we have here today. But it can also work with other manufacturers of tow bars as well. Or chances are really good at least. And that's because nowadays what a lot of them are doing are making adapter ends. So for example, let's say if you already have maybe a Roadmaster style tow bar and you really like this base plate and this is the one that you want to use, but you want to hold on to your tow bar, what you could do is pick up the adapter ends, switch them out, and allow you to pair those two together. Other than that, at the end of the day, base plate you really can't go wrong with. You know, it looks good, it's easy to use, so what more can you really ask for? As far as the installation goes, you know, it's really not too bad. It's definitely involved and time consuming, but you know, nothing too crazy, you know, no wild modifications or anything like that. You will have to do a little bit of drilling to secure it to a part of the vehicle, but that's pretty common for base plate installations. You know, I've done some that are definitely more challenging and some that are easier. So this one kind of falls right in the middle. Now, if this is something you're not comfortable doing or don't have the space or time, I definitely understand that. You can always use our dealer locator network, and hopefully that kind of gets you going in the right direction as far as finding a shop that might be able to help you out with something like this. But with that said, if this is something you're going to do yourself, feel free to hang around. We'll go ahead and get started on it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be working here at the front of our Escape, and being that we need to get the fascia removed, you can pop your hood, and that'll allow us to get access to some fasteners along this front edge here. We're going to have two 10mm head bolts on each side of the vehicle. Pull those out, and from this point on, whatever we do to one side of our vehicle, we're also going to do to the other side because it'll be set up the same way. And then we're going to have a push pin style fastener right there. With these, you can take a trim tool or even a flathead screwdriver. Just pry underneath the head of it. Then you're able to work the whole base out. We can move to our wheel wells now, and since we're going to be working in this area, removing panels and stuff, I put some painter's tape along the edges just so we don't accidentally scratch anything. So that's what all this blue tape is for. But we need to remove these push pin fasteners. There's a bunch of them that run all the way up the wheel well liner there. And it helps if you turn your tire in or out one way or the other. It gives you more room to work. But just like the ones we removed from up top, get your tool. It seems like a flathead screwdriver honestly works better with this style. We'll just work our way all the way up here and get these removed. This is the last one we're going to remove up here. And then what you're able to do is take your wheel well liner, just kind of peel it back like that. You can pull off our wheel well trim here. So with this, it actually unsnaps pretty easily. Just these little clips are holding it in place. And then up here, once you get towards the top, there will be a plastic fastener. And what I did, that's it, I went in behind there and just kind of squeeze those tabs tight to allow it to pull out, you know. I'll do that one too. That's about all we need to go though. And then you can take a piece of foam or a rag or something, kind of prop it in there like that to keep it pulled away from our fascia. We're going to have a couple of 10mm head bolts that we need to remove now, and they're actually connecting the fascia to the quarter panel. So where this seam is, and they're inside, you know, behind it, and the head's going to be on the bottom. So you have one about in this area that runs up, and one about in this area that runs up. These are really tricky to see, but you can get in there and get your tool in there and unscrew them and everything. But just wanted to give you a good visual here on where these are going to be located. We'll work our way in here. And get both of those removed. Moving underneath the front of our vehicle now, on each side of it, we're going to have 5 T30 torque spit fasteners. I'll get all these pulled out here. And then you can switch out to a 7mm head socket. And you'll have 2 screws here at the front. That's really all you need to pull out, but from past experience, I like just to remove this whole underbody panel. It just makes it easier to route wires when we're doing our tow bar wiring, and it's just not hanging down in our way. So just throughout the whole thing, there's those same style of screws there. I'll just work my way all the way around until we get them all removed. Should just be able to kind of pull down on this. And get this last one out here. And slide it towards you and set it off to the side. You can move to your passenger side wheel well now. And behind the fender liner, you're gonna have two electrical connectors that need to come, or get disconnected rather. And so this one here, you'll have a small tab. You can push down on the back of it and pull the two apart. Sometimes too, I've noticed, you know, if you kind of push them together tighter and then push down, they seem to come apart easier. And then with this large one here, you have this gray lever that's going to get pulled up, but there's this little black retainer piece. If you push down on, and push up on that gray part, you can get them disconnected that way. We're ready to get our fascia removed now, and here on the corner here where the fascia and quarter panel meet, up inside of it, there's going to be a fastener, I guess you call it, almost like a clip that's pointing up, right? So it'll be on the fascia, it snaps into the quarter panel. And you need to get inside of there with a little pick or something and push some tabs in to release it. Being that it's really difficult to see, I actually did the other side. That way this can be lowered and I can show you what I'm talking about. So here's what I'm talking about. You know, that pushes up and snaps into place. There's a tab on the outside and one just like it on the other side. And so if you kind of slightly pull down, you can get in there and push. You want to push that in, right? And then you can get in from the back, push that tab in, and once they're both pressed in a little bit, this will just drop right down out of place. So when you're doing this, it's definitely not a bad idea to, you know, have someone supporting the other side, or temporarily zip tie it up if you don't have an extra set of hands or anything, but just be patient. And I'll get these things worked free here. Unfortunately, I don't really have a great trick to get these out, but this pick seems to work pretty good. Just don't want to apply too much pressure and break it. So you get both of them unsnapped just like that. Both sides, like the one we just did, should be able to remove our fascia and set it off to the side. You can get this plastic shroud removed. So you have a push pin fastener just like this on each side. Get that removed first, and then on the top and bottom you'll just have these little clips. Push those to release them all the way around here, and we can get this removed. We're able to remove this sensor now. You want to leave it plugged in though. You don't want to actually unplug it or anything, but there's two screws on each side of it. 8mm head. Got the other ones out already. We'll just kind of let this hang for the time being. Only over here on the driver's side, we're going to have a computer box here, and we need to detach a bracket from the vehicle. So right here, we'll have a 10mm nut. Pull that off, then we'll have a couple of more just right inside in this area. Here's one of the other 10mm bolts here. Remove that, and then follow it down. There's some wiring, and it has a little plastic holder on it that's pushed onto that bolt. So I'm just working that off. Same deal though. That's how that one looks there, but with that removed, you can kind of just let the box hang to the side for now. What I'm going to do too is we have these wiring connectors connected to the black bracket here, and I think they're going to be in the way when we go to put the base plate on, so just taking my trim tool and releasing them. Might as well do this one too here. I think that'll make it a lot easier. You know, I have a lot more room to work to be able to get our base plate in place and not have to deal with trying to, you know, snake it around all these wires. This sensor that we pulled the bolts out of a minute ago, there's a couple of clips in it too that I just pried out. That way it can hang out of our way here. And then if your vehicle has this, I just kind of pushed up on it to buy us a little more clearance for our base plate. And then on each side of our vehicle, we'll have these two bolts here. They're a 13mm head, and we can go ahead and get them removed. Now with an extra set of hands, we can take our base plate and get it into position. Make sure we clear all of our wiring and everything. And what we're trying to do, which I might actually, let's pull it back off some. I'm gonna see how these wires set. That might be the better move there, so we can actually get them back on the computer. But we're gonna take our factory bolts that we pulled out of here, and you wanna make sure to put red Loctite on the threads, and all the hardware that we're gonna use to secure the base plate will receive this. We'll just go ahead and get these started hand tight for now. I got both the bolts in place, and a lot of times too you'll get one on each side going and then the other one won't line up perfectly. It's pretty common, so you can try to put a jack on the bottom and lift up on it, or you can take a pry bar on the side and kind of work it and hold it there, and that'll let you actually get the bolt started smoothly. All right, and with these, since sometimes they are tight, I definitely just recommend snugging them down by hand. That way you're able to tell if they're getting hung up or anything like that. You just don't blow through it with a power tool. So we'll get all these snug down here. I'm gonna come back with a torque wrench now and tighten this hardware down to the amount specified in the instructions. We can use our base plate as a template now to drill a hole into the bumper beam. That way we can get our hardware in. So I did this side already. This side will be set up the exact same. 1/2-inch drill bit, and we'll drill through it. And this is pretty hard steel, so just I like to use a little bit higher pressure. If you have some type of cutting agent or lubricant to keep your bit cool, and it'll go a little bit slower, usually seems to work pretty good. We'll change that to a hole saw now, and in this little indention, we'll create an opening. That way we can have an access hole to get our hardware in. So same deal with this. We have some bare metal exposed now. I'm just going to come back with a little spray paint, put a coating on it. That way we don't have to worry about any rust or corrosion issues. So we'll give that a few minutes to dry, come back and start working on the bolts. The hardware that we're going to use, we're going to have a handle nut. And this bolt here, it's one of the shorter 1/2-inch ones. And when it comes to these handle nuts or plate nuts or anything that's attached to a rod like this, I always like to take the bolt before you put the Loctite on, just run it through, make sure it goes in smoothly. Sometimes you'll get a little piece of welding slop on the threads or paint and kind of be a pain. And then you're going to have 2 1/2-inch flat washers. All right, with these, they're going to go in between the base plate and the bumper, but they're kind of tricky to get in there. And so what I like to do is just take packing tape and I tape them together, cut the opening out, and then that way you got kind of a little handle there to line everything up. So we'll get our Loctite on there. The handle nut roughly into position. Washers lined up. If you're having a hard time kind of getting everything going, what I did was put the bolt through the washers, through the bumper there, and then I used more packing tape to tape the washers in place. And then that kind of frees up a hand and makes it a lot easier to get the bolt started. Come back with a 3/4-inch socket. We'll snug that up. Change out to our torque wrench. Get it torqued. And then for the handles, sometimes you can just work them free. These are on there pretty good. Just gonna come in with a pair of snips, cut the ends off. I'll probably get our tape removed too. I went ahead, moved over here to the passenger side to show you this part, just because there's not all that stuff in the way. It's a lot easier to see what's going on. But with that said, driver's side will be exactly the same. We'll have 2 holes in our base plate here that we're going to use it as a template. This one on the bottom is a little bit smaller. Need to drill this out. And then with this one up here, a lot of times, so there's already a factory hole, but the majority of the time it's not going to line up perfectly. It's pretty common if you run into that. So I'm just going to take a little grinding bit here and get that material removed. That way we have a round hole to work with. I'll come back, a little bit of paint, and then there's this opening here, that's going to be our access hole. There's this little tab that kind of ramps up. I'm going to bend that out of the way. So let's take a pair of pliers. Work it open about like that. The hardware that'll go in here is this big handle nut. You have a larger hole at the top, and this one's a little bit smaller. Again, run the bolts through there first, get all that paint and stuff out of the threads. But for the top one, you're going to take the 1/2 inch bolt and a 1/2 inch lock washer, your red Loctite. Get that lined up. Get just a couple of threads started on it. And you'll take the smaller bolt, I believe it's a 3/8, a split lock washer. Get that one going too. We'll snug these down. For the smaller bolt, you can use a 9/16 socket. A bigger one, change out to a 3/4. And then grab the torque wrench and get these completely tightened. Work the handle nut off now. Like that one, you can just move back and forth and it popped off. And we'll go ahead and bend this back into position as well. At this point, I went ahead and reinstalled our sensor here at the front, opposite way that we removed it. And you can come over to the sides now, and you'll have these safety cables that they give you. They need to go around the frame and get connected to the base plate. So I just took the cable, bent it in half, wrapped it around the frame, took the D-link there, connected it up. And then I like to use zip ties to kind of pull the cable tight. That way it's not going to rattle or clunk around when we're going down the road. And yeah, you got, did that on each side, and then simply resecured our black box here the opposite way that we removed it, pushed all the wiring back into the original keepers. At this point, it'd be a great opportunity to work on some of your other flat towing components, like your wiring, your braking system, things of that nature. And I say it because with the fascia off, you have a lot more room to work to be able to mount stuff up and kind of go from there. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And once I have that wrapped up, we'll come back. And so what I did is just held it up to the vehicle and, see where it was going to make any interference. There's a diagram and the instructions too that you can follow. But with our model, the grill looked a little bit different than the one in the instructions, so that's why I held it up. But where I'm going to cut, I'm going to go pretty much just this opening here. Now I'm just using a razor cutter tool to cut this. I find it gives you the cleanest cut, but you can use a Dremel or get a pair of snips or whatever you got. I'll get that material removed and kind of go from there as far as seeing if it's going to fit. I think it might be easier too to install the wiring bracket that they give you at this point as opposed to when the fascia is going to be actually put back on our vehicle. I got our little bracket installed here and really nothing to it. I just found the center in between these two pushpin fasteners and then split the difference there in the bracket, drilled a couple holes, and they give you some nuts and bolts, flat washers you can use to secure it. And then I just, looked straight down where our wires would come through, drilled a hole there to allow them to pass through the fascia. So with that said, I think we're ready to try and get this back on and see if we need to make any other adjustments. When you go to put this back on, if you have your wiring, push that through the hole that you drilled to your bracket. carefully get this back into position here. Got our fascia put back in place, and this is how it turned out. I really didn't have to do any more trimming other than just on the side piece. I had to cut out a little bit more, maybe a 1/4 inch or something, to get everything to fit. It was tight, you know, you have to kind of work it into position, but once it kind of clears everything, it'll fall right into place, and that's really all there is to it. So now that we confirmed everything's gonna fit, we don't have to make any more adjustments or trim anything else, I'll go ahead and completely resecure the front fascia the opposite way that we removed it. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Blue Ox base plate kit with removable arms on our 2023 Ford Escape.